Chapter 9. Gideon the Vanishing. A day had passed since the message. Be careful, they're listening, since the shop vanished. Since Gideon realized something in the Verosphere didn't add up, it was like something had shifted just beneath the surface. He sat on a bench near the fountain, watching the people move around him, their faces lit by the glow of their phone screens. Everything looked the same, but that didn't mean it was. Evie found him sitting on that bench. She hesitated. Would he even believe her? Taking a breath, she walked over and sat down beside him. You don't remember me, do you? Gideon looked at her, his expression unreadable. Yeah, you're the lady who knew my name, Evie exhaled. Yeah, but more than that, we knew each other before you left, Gideon frowned. I'm telling you I've never been here before. That's not true, Evie pushed. He opened his mouth, but she shook her head. Just listen, okay? Just before you left, you were important here. People listened to you. They followed you. Gideon's brow furrowed. Followed me? For what? Evie swallowed. You. Ping. Her phone vibrated sharply against her wrist. She flinched. Priority task. Immediate completion required. Her chest tightened. Not now. She tried to ignore it. You. Ping. Failure to comply will result in task escalation. Her pulse quickened. Gideon noticed. What is it? She glanced at him, torn. It's MarketLink. I just ping. Her phone screen flashed red. Final warning, immediate compliance required. Evie swore under her breath. If she ignored it, there would be consequences. She stood abruptly, forcing a tight smile. I have to go. Just stay here, okay? I'll be back. She turned before he could argue, walking away quickly, fists clenched. Later that day, she tried again. Same place, same time. I was trying to tell you that, ding, priority task, report to Verosphere logistics. She turned around again, walking away quickly, fists clenched. The next day, listen, Gideon, I don't think it's a coincidence that, ding, behavioral compliance survey required. She left, promising to tell him later that day. I know this sounds crazy, but, ding. She clenched her fists. Every single time she got close to telling him something, MarketLink pulled her away. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't coincidence. It was deliberate. Someone didn't want Gideon to remember. That evening, she walked home, her thoughts racing. Her phone vibrated again. Report to Verosphere administration. Non-compliance notice issued. Evie's breath hitched. She stared at the words flashing on the screen, her heart pounding. This was it. She had done everything they asked. She had completed every task. And yet, this. Her hands clenched around the device. She was never going to be able to tell Gideon anything at this rate. Every time she tried, they pulled her away. Every time she got close, another urgent task appeared. This wasn't random. It was controlled. It was a leash. And she was done. Her phone buzzed again. Failure to comply will result in escalation. Fine, let them escalate. She took a sharp breath and turned away from the designated path. Not toward administration. Toward Gideon's house. Let them try to stop her. Because tonight, she was telling him the truth. Gideon's home was like everything else in Verosphere, clean, structured, and impersonal. A small, efficient space. Not too big, not too small. Designed for comfort, not sentimentality. No pictures, no personal history, nothing to remind him of a life before this. But when Evie stepped inside, her hands shaking, she knew he wasn't supposed to live like this. She sat across from him at the small table. Gideon leaned back, watching her carefully. All right, you wanted to talk? Talk. Her phone buzzed violently. She ignored it. Gideon, I know you don't remember me. His expression stayed guarded. You keep saying that. She exhaled. Because it's true. Ding. Her phone flashed red. Priority task, immediate compliance required. She tightened her grip on the table. Your wife's name was Julia. Silence. Gideon stiffened. She saw the flicker of something in his face, recognition, pain. She passed away, his jaw clenched. And your grandparents raised you after your parents died. She swallowed. Your grandfather was the one who taught you how to fix things. Said it kept your hands steady when the world wasn't. Gideon's breath hitched, his fingers curled into fists. She was right. How do I know that, Gideon? The question hung in the air. He stared at her, his mind racing. He put his face in his hands. There was no way she should have known those things. Unless she was telling the truth. Evie let out a breath, then started to say, and how do I know? The room went silent. No more buzzing phones, no more warnings. That was wrong. A chill ran down her spine. Then a rush of cold air, a pulling sensation, not loud, not violent, silent, immediate. Evie, what else do you know? He turned to look at her, but she wasn't there. The chair across from him was empty. His stomach dropped. Evie? He stood, scanning the room. Nothing. The door hadn't opened. The window hadn't moved. She had disappeared, like she had never been there at all. His hands shook. She hadn't told him anything useful, only pieces of his past that he already had vague recollections of. And now, she was gone. Gideon exhaled slowly, his pulse pounding in his ears. He was more unsettled by the thought that there was something about himself he didn't know than by the possibility that Evie had been taken. Screw it. He grabbed his coat and he walked out of his house to find the store everything you forgot.